My mother framing me for a crime gave me my freedom. The police officer's handcuffs clicked against the kitchen table as Detective Martinez set them down, his eyes moving between me and my mother. It was 3:47 p.m. on a Tuesday in November, and I should have been in AP chemistry instead of watching my own mother orchestrate my arrest. Mrs. Chen, Detective Martinez said, pulling out his notepad, you're saying you found the jewelry in your daughter's bedroom? Mom's performance was Oscar-worthy. Her hands trembled just enough to seem genuine as she dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. I couldn't believe it at first. Sarah's always been such a good girl. But when Mrs. Kowalski called me about the missing items, I had to check. She let out a shaky breath. The emerald bracelet was right there in her dresser drawer, wrapped in one of her old t-shirts. I sat frozen in my chair, watching 17 years of psychological warfare culminate in this moment. The bracelet in question, a vintage piece worth roughly $3,200 according to the insurance documents, was indeed found in my room. Just like the pearl necklace last month. And the antique brooch the month before that. Sarah? Detective Martinez turned to me. Do you have anything to say about this? For a split second, I considered playing along. Apologizing. Begging for forgiveness. That's what the old me would have done, the me who'd spent years walking on eggshells, managing mom's moods, believing her version of reality where I was always the problem. But something had shifted last week when I caught her red-handed. I want to call my school counselor, I said quietly. Ms. Rodriguez. She's been documenting some things for me. Mom's face flickered, just for an instant, but I caught it. The mask slipped, and underneath was something cold and calculating. She recovered quickly, leaning forward with renewed maternal concern. Honey, I know this is scary, but we need to tell the truth here. Mrs. Kowalski has been so kind to us. She gave you that job helping with her groceries and light housekeeping out of the goodness of her heart. How could you? Because I didn't. The words came out stronger than I expected. And deep down, you know I didn't. Detective Martinez was watching our exchange carefully now. I could see the wheels turning. In his line of work, he'd probably seen plenty of family dynamics, and something about this one was setting off his radar. Mrs. Chen, he said, how exactly did you gain access to your daughter's room to search it? It's my house, Mom replied quickly. Too quickly. She's 17. She's my minor child. But didn't you tell me earlier that Sarah keeps her room locked and you respect her privacy? I watched Mom's jaw tighten almost imperceptibly. She'd made her first mistake, and Detective Martinez had caught it. Well, yes, usually, but under these circumstances. Mom. I looked directly at her, feeling something like pity. You forgot about the camera, didn't you? The color drained from her face. What camera? Detective Martinez asked. I took a deep breath. This was it, the moment I'd been preparing for without even knowing it. 3 months of secretly gathering evidence. Bank statements printed at the library. Photos taken when she thought I wasn't looking. And yes, a tiny security camera I'd hidden in my room after the first piece of jewelry mysteriously appeared. The one that recorded her planting the bracelet in my dresser at 2:15 a.m. last Thursday. The silence that followed was deafening. Detective Martinez's pen stopped moving across his notepad, and for the first time since arriving, my mother was completely still. No trembling hands, no dabbing at tears. Just frozen shock. I'm sorry, what did you just say? Detective Martinez asked, his tone shifting from routine questioning to laser focus. I have video evidence of my mother planting that bracelet in my room, I repeated, my voice gaining confidence with each word. Along with documentation of her stealing from Mrs. Kowalski over the past 6 months. Mom finally found her voice. Sarah, you're obviously upset and confused. You're trying to deflect blame onto me? Yeah, I learned from the best. I turned back to Detective Martinez. The camera uploads everything to cloud storage automatically. I can show you right now. This is ridiculous, Mom snapped, her mask slipping further. She's a troubled teenager trying to avoid consequences. Detective Martinez, surely you can see. Ma'am, I'm going to need you to stop talking for a moment. Detective Martinez held up his hand. Sarah, you're saying you have video of your mother placing stolen jewelry in your room? Not just video. Financial records too. She's been systematically stealing from Mrs. Kowalski and using me as the fall guy. The elderly woman trusts her completely. Mom's been managing her bills and grocery runs for 2 years now. Mrs. Kowalski probably doesn't even know half the stuff is missing yet. Detective Martinez was taking notes rapidly now. How long has this been going on? The stealing? Since around May, based on the bank records I found. But setting me up as the thief? That started in September when I began asking questions about where she was getting extra money. I paused, remembering that first confrontation. She bought a $800 purse and claimed it was a gift from a friend. When I pressed her about which friend, she got violent. Violent how? Mom shot to her feet. I will not sit here and listen to these lies. Detective, my daughter is clearly having some kind of breakdown. She needs help, not. Mrs. Chen, please sit down. Detective Martinez's voice carried authority now. Sarah, when you say violent, what specifically happened? This was the hardest part, admitting the physical abuse out loud to a stranger. But Ms. Rodriguez had been preparing me for this moment during our weekly sessions. She grabbed my arm hard enough to leave bruises that lasted a week. Then she screamed at me for 45 minutes about being ungrateful and suspicious. That's when I knew something was really wrong, because the math wasn't adding up. She works part-time at a dental office making $14 an hour, but suddenly she's buying designer clothes and expensive jewelry for herself. That bracelet, when did it first appear in your room? October 18th. I found it wrapped in my old volleyball t-shirt, buried under my winter sweaters. I knew I'd never seen it before, so I confronted her. She acted shocked and said I must have taken it from Mrs. Kowalski without realizing it, maybe while I was stressed about college applications. I shook my head. The gaslighting was immediate and intense. Detective Martinez looked up from his notes. Gaslighting? Making me question my own reality. Suggesting I was mentally unstable, that I might have stolen things without remembering. She even scheduled a doctor's appointment to have me evaluated for memory issues. The appointment I'd refused to attend, which had led to another screaming match. And that's when you installed the camera? 3 days later. I ordered it online and set it up while she was at work. Best $127 I ever spent. Mom's face had gone from pale to red. You violated my privacy. Recording in my own home without permission is. Actually, Mrs. Chen, Detective Martinez interrupted, a minor has the right to record in their own bedroom, especially if they suspect criminal activity or abuse. The word abuse hung in the air like smoke. I pulled out my phone, my hand steadier than I'd expected. Detective Martinez, would you like to see the video from last Thursday night? Sarah, don't you dare, Mom lunged toward me, but Detective Martinez was faster, stepping between us. Ma'am, I need you to remain seated and keep your hands visible. His tone had shifted completely, this wasn't a routine theft report anymore. Sarah, yes, I'd like to see that video. I opened the security app and scrolled to October 24th, 2:15 a.m. The timestamp glowed green in the corner as the black and white footage began to play. My bedroom door opened slowly, and Mom's silhouette crept inside, something small and glittering in her hand. That's the emerald bracelet, I said quietly, watching Detective Martinez's face as my mother's figure moved toward my dresser on the tiny screen. Watch her check my bed first to make sure I'm asleep. On camera, Mom paused next to my bed for nearly 30 seconds before proceeding to my dresser. She opened the second drawer, the one with my old t-shirts, and carefully buried the bracelet beneath my volleyball jersey from freshman year. The whole thing takes her 4 minutes and 12 seconds, I continued. She's done this before. Look how methodically she moves. Detective Martinez took my phone, rewinding and watching the footage again. Mom had gone completely silent, staring at her hands. Mrs. Chen, do you have an explanation for this? When she finally spoke, her voice was different. Colder. The concerned mother act was completely gone. She set me up. She knew I'd been taking a few things from the old woman. Dorothy has dementia, she doesn't even remember what she owns half the time. Sarah threatened to tell unless I gave her money for college. I stared at her, genuinely shocked. Even knowing what she was capable of, I hadn't expected her to pivot this quickly. That's not. So you admit to stealing from Mrs. Kowalski? Detective Martinez interrupted. Mom's eyes darted between us, realizing her mistake. Dorothy doesn't need those things. She's going into a nursing home anyway. Her family never visits. I've been taking care of her for 2 years, and what do I get? $14 an hour to manage someone else's fortune while my own daughter needs money for SAT prep and college applications. How much have you stolen, Mom? The question came out before I could stop it. She laughed bitterly. Stolen? I earned every penny dealing with that woman's pill schedule and grocery lists and cleaning up her accidents. The jewelry, the cash from her purse, the checks I wrote to myself, it's back pay. Detective Martinez was writing furiously. Ma'am, you just confessed to theft, check fraud, and financial exploitation of an elderly person. And attempted evidence tampering, I added, holding up my phone. Plus filing a false police report against me. The silence stretched until Detective Martinez's radio crackled. He answered it quietly, then looked back at us. Mrs. Chen, I'm going to need you to come with me to the station for further questioning. Sarah, is there a relative or trusted adult who can stay with you? Ms. Rodriguez, my school counselor. She's been helping me prepare for this day. Mom's head snapped up. Prepare for this? How long have you been planning to destroy me? The question hit me harder than I expected. Because the truth was, I hadn't been planning anything. I'd just been trying to survive. The evidence gathering, the camera, the careful documentation, it had all been defensive moves, not offensive ones. I wasn't trying to destroy you, I said, surprised by how sad I felt. I was trying to protect myself. There's a difference. Detective Martinez stood up, reaching for his handcuffs. Mrs. Chen, please stand up. You're under arrest for theft, fraud, and filing a false police report. As he read her rights, Mom looked at me one last time. You have no idea what you've just done to yourself, Sarah. You think you're so smart, but you're 17 years old with no money and no family. Where exactly do you think you're going to go? For the first time in this entire nightmare, I smiled. Because I didn't know exactly where I was going to go. The question hung in the air as Detective Martinez finished cuffing my mother. Where was I going to go? 3 months ago, it would have sent me into a panic spiral. But I'd learned something important about preparation during those late nights at the library, printing bank statements and researching legal precedents. Having a plan makes all the difference. Ms. Rodriguez has been in contact with Child Protective Services, I said, watching Mom's face carefully. I've been in the system as a potential emancipation candidate since October 15th. Mom's expression shifted from anger to something approaching fear. You called CPS? On your own mother? I documented everything, Mom. The financial abuse, the emotional manipulation, the physical incidents. Did you really think I'd just let you ruin my life and walk away? Detective Martinez paused in the doorway. Sarah, when you say financial abuse, what specifically are you referring to? I'd been hoping he'd ask. She's been stealing my paychecks from my part-time job at the bookstore since last summer. I make $11.50 an hour working 15 hours a week, but I've never seen a penny of it. She claimed she was saving it for college, but I found bank records showing she spent my earnings on her credit card payments and that designer purse. That money paid for your food and shelter, Mom snapped from the doorway. Everything I do is for this family. What family? The words came out sharper than intended. It's been just you and me since Dad left when I was 12, and you spent 5 years telling me that was my fault too. Do you remember what you said the night he moved out? That he couldn't handle having such a difficult, ungrateful daughter? Detective Martinez was taking notes again. Your father left when you were 12? October 23, 2018. Mom told everyone he abandoned us, but I found the divorce papers last month when I was looking for my birth certificate. He filed for joint custody, and she fought it. There are court documents showing she convinced the judge I didn't want to see him. Mom's face had gone pale again. You were upset about the divorce. You said. I was 12 and you coached me on what to say. I found the notes you made, Mom. Sarah feels scared around her father. Sarah says Daddy makes her uncomfortable. Ring any bells? The silence stretched until Detective Martinez's radio crackled again. He answered, spoke quietly for a moment, then turned back to us. Mrs. Chen, we need to go. Sarah, I'm going to have Officer Barnes stay with you until your counselor arrives. Do not touch anything in your mother's bedroom or office area. Those are potential crime scenes now. Crime scenes. The words sent a chill through me that had nothing to do with the November cold seeping through our kitchen windows. Wait, I said as they reached the door. Detective Martinez, there's something else you need to know about Mrs. Kowalski. Mom froze. Sarah, don't. She has a son. Robert Kowalski. He lives in Portland and sends her $800 a month to supplement her Social Security. Mom's been intercepting those checks since July and depositing them into an account she opened in Mrs. Kowalski's name. But Mrs. Kowalski doesn't know the account exists. Detective Martinez stopped walking. How do you know about the checks? Because Mrs. Kowalski asked me about them 3 weeks ago. She was worried because Robert hadn't been sending her usual money, and she was afraid something had happened to him. She was talking about calling the police to file a missing person report. Mom's voice was barely a whisper. You little. Ma'am, Detective Martinez cut her off. Sarah, do you have documentation of this? I nodded. Bank statements, deposit slips, everything. The account has $6,400 in it as of last Friday. Mom's been planning to clean it out and disappear. I found plane tickets to Phoenix in her email. One-way tickets. Just for her. The look Mom gave me in that moment was unlike anything I'd ever seen. Not anger or disappointment or even hatred. It was the look of someone who'd been playing chess while thinking their opponent was playing checkers, only to discover they'd been outmaneuvered entirely. You've been spying on me for months, she said. I've been protecting myself. Just like you taught me to. Detective Martinez stepped back into the kitchen, his expression grim. Sarah, I need you to explain what you mean by just like you taught me to. The question hung in the air, and I realized I'd opened a door I wasn't sure I was ready to walk through. But there was no going back now. Mom's been running cons since I was little. She taught me to read people, to find their weaknesses, to make them trust me. She called it survival skills, but really it was just manipulation. I glanced at Mom, who had gone completely rigid. The difference is, I learned to recognize when someone was doing it to me. Give me an example, Detective Martinez said, pen poised. I took a breath, remembering the McDonald's incident from 3 years ago. When I was 14, she sent me into a McDonald's to claim I'd found a hair in my food and my stomach hurt. The manager gave us a full refund plus free meals. But we'd never actually bought anything, we just grabbed a receipt from the trash and some hair from Mom's brush. That was one time, Mom hissed. And we were broke. It was 17 times across 9 different restaurants that summer. I kept count because you made me practice my story every time. I turned back to Detective Martinez. She'd quizzed me in the car beforehand. What's your expression? Are your eyes watery enough? Remember to hold your stomach. Officer Barnes, who'd been standing quietly by the door, spoke up. Ma'am, that's fraud. Teaching a minor to commit fraud. It was a few dollars here and there, Mom said, but her voice lacked conviction. The Westfield Mall incident wasn't a few dollars, I countered. Christmas 2022. You had me return a $300 coat to Nordstrom with a receipt you'd found in the parking lot. When they asked why I didn't have the tags, you'd coached me to say my grandmother had already removed them to wrap it as a gift, but then she died suddenly and I couldn't bear to keep it. Detective Martinez looked up sharply. Your grandmother died? No, she's alive and lives in Sacramento. But Mom said it would make the story more believable if I cried while telling it. The memory still made me feel sick. I practiced that story for 3 days. She even showed me how to make my eyes red beforehand using eye drops. Sarah. Mom's voice had taken on a pleading tone I'd never heard before. You don't understand. After your father left, we had nothing. I was doing whatever it took to keep us afloat. By teaching a 14-year-old to be a criminal? By teaching you to survive. Detective Martinez held up his hand. Mrs. Chen, anything you say can and will be used against you in court. I strongly advise you to stop talking. He turned to me. Sarah, have there been other incidents like these? I nodded, feeling exhausted suddenly. The insurance claim on Dad's car after he moved out. She had me call and say I'd been in the passenger seat when a shopping cart hit it in a parking lot. But the damage was actually from her backing into a pole at work. The payout was $1,200. You filed a false insurance claim using your minor daughter? She didn't file it, I said quietly. I did. She had me make the call because she said insurance companies were more sympathetic to teenagers. I didn't understand until years later that she was also using me because if anyone got in trouble, it would be me, not her. The realization hit Detective Martinez and me at the same time. She's been setting you up as the fall guy for years. The jewelry theft was just the biggest con yet, I said, pieces clicking into place. If this had worked, if I'd been arrested and charged, she could have played the heartbroken mother of a troubled teen. Mrs. Kowalski would have felt sorry for her. No one would have suspected her of anything. Mom's silence was answer enough. How long has CPS been involved? Detective Martinez asked. Ms. Rodriguez filed the first report 6 weeks ago. There's already an open case file. I pulled out a folded paper from my back pocket. This is my temporary placement authorization. If Mom was arrested, I'm supposed to go to a foster family that's been briefed on the situation. Mom's face crumpled. You planned all of this. No, I said firmly. You planned this. I just refuse to be your victim anymore. Detective Martinez's radio crackled again, and this time the voice on the other end was urgent. He stepped into the hallway to take the call, leaving Officer Barnes to watch over Mom and me in tense silence. Sarah, Mom said quietly, you have no idea what you've unleashed here. The Kowalski situation is more complicated than you think. I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the November air. What do you mean? Dorothy Kowalski isn't some innocent old lady. She's been laundering money for her late husband's business associates for 15 years. That $6,400 you're so worried about? It's not her son's Social Security supplements, it's payment for keeping quiet about what she knows. Officer Barnes looked up sharply. Ma'am, you really need to stop talking. But Mom kept going, her voice gaining a desperate edge. You think I'm the criminal here? Dorothy came to me 6 months ago. She needed someone to help her move money around without her family knowing. The jewelry, the cash, she asked me to take it. She's been paying me to make it look like theft so her son wouldn't ask questions about where her assets went. My stomach dropped. That's not, you're lying. Am I? Then explain why she never called the police herself. Why it was always me reporting the thefts to her son. Why she specifically requested that you be the one helping her with errands. Mom's eyes were sharp now, calculating. Dorothy Kowalski has been grooming you, Sarah. You're 17, clean record, honor student, the perfect person to eventually take over her operation when she goes into the nursing home. You're making this up, I said, but uncertainty crept into my voice. I thought about Mrs. Kowalski's house, how she always insisted I come alone, how she'd ask detailed questions about my plans after high school, how she'd mentioned several times that she could help with college expenses if I was willing to be flexible. The plane ticket to Phoenix? That wasn't for me to disappear with stolen money. Dorothy bought it. She has a house there, and she wanted me to bring you for Thanksgiving break. Said it was time you learned about the family business. Mom leaned forward despite her handcuffs. I was trying to protect you by getting arrested today. Better to go down for simple theft than let you get pulled into organized money laundering. Officer Barnes stepped forward. Mrs. Chen, I'm warning you. Check her phone, Mom said desperately. Text messages from Dorothy. The one from yesterday morning, is the girl ready for the trip? My associates are expecting her. My hands shook as I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my messages. There it was, a text from Mrs. Kowalski at 9:23 a.m. yesterday. Dear, please confirm you can join us for the extended Thanksgiving holiday. My friends are very eager to meet you. Pack for warm weather. Smiling face. I thought it was just a sweet invitation from a lonely old woman. Detective Martinez returned, his expression grim. We have a problem. Mrs. Dorothy Kowalski died in her sleep last night. Natural causes, according to the paramedics, but the timing is suspicious. Her house is currently being processed as a crime scene. The room went silent except for the sound of my heart hammering against my ribs. She's dead? I whispered. Her neighbor found her this morning when she didn't answer the door for their usual coffee. Mrs. Kowalski apparently called someone at 11:47 p.m. last night, a 23-minute conversation. We're pulling phone records now. Detective Martinez looked between Mom and me. Mrs. Chen, did Dorothy Kowalski contact you yesterday evening? Mom's face had gone ashen. She called to tell me Sarah was asking too many questions. That the investigation was moving too fast and she was worried about exposure. She said she was going to clean house and disappear, but she needed one more favor first. What favor? She wanted me to bring Sarah to her house this morning. Said it was time to read her in on the full operation. Mom's voice was barely audible. I told her absolutely not. That's when she threatened to frame me for everything, make it look like I'd been stealing from her without her knowledge. She said she'd already planted evidence that would destroy me. Detective Martinez was writing rapidly. What kind of evidence? Financial records showing larger thefts than what actually happened. Forged documents with my signature. She said if I didn't cooperate, she'd call the police this morning and have me arrested. Mom looked at me with something approaching desperation. That's why I called first. I knew if I reported you for the jewelry theft, it would start an investigation on my terms, not hers. I could control the narrative, keep it small scale. So you decided to frame your own daughter instead, Officer Barnes said flatly. I thought they'd investigate, find the camera footage, realize I planted the bracelet, and arrest me for simple theft and filing a false report. 2 years maximum sentence. But if Dorothy's operation came to light with Sarah involved. Mom trailed off. Detective Martinez's radio buzzed again. He answered, listened for a long moment, then looked up with an expression that made my blood run cold. We just found $127,000 in cash hidden in Dorothy Kowalski's basement, along with detailed financial records going back 8 years. And Sarah? He paused. Your name is on documents dated for next week. You were scheduled to become the primary account holder on 6 different bank accounts. The kitchen walls seemed to close in around me as the full scope of what I'd narrowly escaped began to sink in. The $127,000 figure echoed in my head like a gunshot. 6 bank accounts. My name on documents I'd never seen, never signed. That's impossible, I said, my voice coming out smaller than I intended. I never agreed to anything like that. I never even knew Mrs. Kowalski had that kind of money. Detective Martinez consulted his notepad. According to the documents we found, you were scheduled to meet with a banker named Vincent Carrera this Friday at 2 p.m. The appointment was made 3 weeks ago. He looked up. Did you know about this meeting? No. But even as I said it, something nagged at me. Mrs. Kowalski had asked me last month if I was free Friday afternoon, said she might need help with some important paperwork. I'd assumed she meant insurance forms or medical documents. Sarah, Mom said urgently, did Dorothy ever ask you to sign anything? Even something that seemed innocent? I thought back through months of grocery runs and house cleaning visits. She had me sign for packages a few times when the delivery guy came while I was there. And I paused, remembering. 2 weeks ago, she said her arthritis was acting up and asked me to help her fill out some forms. Banking stuff. She said her grandson needed to be added to her accounts in case of emergency. What exactly did you sign? She had me practice writing Sarah Chen on a separate piece of paper first, said she wanted to make sure the bank could read my handwriting clearly. Then I signed maybe 4 or 5 official-looking documents. But they were for her grandson Robert, not me. The memory crystallized with horrible clarity. She kept saying, just sign where I point, dear, this is all standard family trust paperwork. Detective Martinez and Officer Barnes exchanged a look that made my stomach churn. Mrs. Chen, Detective Martinez said to my mother, how long did you know about Mrs. Kowalski's criminal activities? I figured it out in July when she first approached me about the jewelry arrangement. But I didn't understand the scope until last month when she showed me some of the bank statements. The woman had nearly $400,000 scattered across different accounts. Mom's voice was hollow. She said Sarah reminded her of herself at that age, smart, careful, trustworthy. She'd been watching her for months, testing her. Testing me how? The extra $20 bills she'd leave lying around to see if you'd take them. The way she'd ask you detailed questions about your family's financial situation. She told me you passed every test, you never stole anything, you were always honest about finding money or valuables, and you clearly needed cash for college but were too proud to ask for help. I remembered those $20 bills, how I'd always brought them to Mrs. Kowalski thinking she'd drop them. How pleased she'd seemed each time. She was profiling me. Dorothy Kowalski wasn't just laundering money, Detective Martinez said, reading from a text he'd just received. According to preliminary findings, she was running a recruitment operation. The FBI is finding similar document sets for 3 other teenagers across the state, all honor students, all from single-parent households, all recruited through elderly relatives or family friends. The scope of it hit me like a physical blow. I was never special. I was just a target. The Phoenix trip, Mom continued quietly, that's where they train the recruits. 3 weeks in a compound outside the city, learning how to move money, how to spot surveillance, how to recruit others. Dorothy told me the kids who complete the program can make $50,000 a year starting immediately, full college tuition paid, guaranteed jobs after graduation. And if they refuse? Mom's silence was answer enough. Detective Martinez's phone rang, and he stepped into the hallway again. Through the kitchen window, I could see 2 more police cars pulling up outside, along with an unmarked sedan that screamed federal agents. Sarah, Mom whispered, there's something else. Dorothy mentioned other kids who didn't work out. 3 of them over the past 2 years. She said they'd had accidents, car crashes, drug overdoses that seemed suspicious. Kids who'd gotten too deep and tried to back out. The kitchen door opened, and Detective Martinez returned with 2 people in dark suits. FBI, definitely. Sarah Chan? The woman stepped forward, showing her badge. Agent Rebecca Torres, Federal Bureau of Investigation. We need to talk. Agent Torres settled into the chair across from me, her partner remaining standing by the door. The kitchen felt impossibly small with 6 adults crowding around our scratched wooden table. Sarah, I'm Agent Torres and this is Agent Kim. We've been investigating Dorothy Kowalski's operation for 8 months. Her voice was calm, professional, but I caught the urgency underneath. Right now, you're not a suspect, you're a potential victim. But we need your complete cooperation. My mouth felt dry. What kind of cooperation? The Phoenix trip is happening whether Dorothy is alive or not. Her associates don't know she's dead yet, and they're expecting you to arrive Friday evening. Agent Torres pulled out a tablet, showing me flight confirmations. Southwest Flight 2847, departing 6:20 p.m. Ticket purchased 3 days ago under your name. I stared at the confirmation screen. I never agreed to any trip. We know. But Vincent Carrera, the banker you were supposed to meet, he's been trying to reach you since this morning. For missed calls to your cell phone. She gestured to my phone. Check your voicemail. With trembling hands, I pulled up my messages. For calls from an unknown Phoenix number, the most recent just 20 minutes ago. Sarah, dear. The voice was male, older, with a slight accent I couldn't place. This is Vincent, Dorothy's associate. I understand there may have been some confusion about your travel arrangements, but it's very important that you keep our appointment. I'll be at Sky Harbor Airport Friday at 8:30 p.m. to collect you. Please don't let Dorothy's sudden absence worry you, these things happen in our business. We're still very much looking forward to meeting you. Agent Kim leaned forward. He doesn't know she's dead. That message was left at 3:22 p.m., 2 hours after we found the body. How is that possible? Dorothy Kowalski had an elaborate communication system, Agent Torres explained. Delayed email sends, pre-recorded voicemails, scheduled text messages. She could disappear for weeks and still maintain contact with her network. We're finding timers set up through next March. Detective Martinez spoke up. Agent Torres, what about the other teenagers you mentioned? Kevin Walsh from Spokane, Amanda Rivera from Eugene, Marcus Thompson from Boise. All 17, all honor students, all recruited through elderly mentors over the past 18 months. Agent Torres swiped through photos on her tablet. Kevin completed the Phoenix program last summer and is now managing accounts in Seattle. Amanda refused to go and died in a car accident 3 weeks later, brake lines had been cut. Marcus. She paused. Marcus is missing. His family thinks he's at college, but he never enrolled anywhere. The room went silent except for the hum of our ancient refrigerator. What happens if I don't get on that plane Friday? I asked. Vincent Carrera becomes suspicious. The network realizes Dorothy might have been compromised. They clean house and disappear, taking millions of dollars and any evidence of their operation with them. Agent Torres met my eyes directly. And you become a loose end who knows too much. Mom spoke for the first time since the agents arrived. What are you asking her to do? We're asking Sarah to take that trip. Wearing a wire, with full FBI backup, but Vincent and his associates need to believe everything is proceeding normally. Agent Kim pulled out a thick folder. This is your new identity packet, Sarah. As of tomorrow morning, you're an excited high school senior looking forward to a college prep program in Arizona. I felt like I was drowning. You want me to go undercover? I'm 17 years old. You're also the only person they're expecting who isn't already dead or missing, Agent Torres said bluntly. We've been trying to infiltrate this network for 3 years. This is our first real chance. Agent Kim added, we'll have agents on your flight, at the airport, and tracking your location every moment. But Sarah, if we're going to do this, you need to be completely committed. One mistake and this whole operation collapses. I looked around the kitchen, at Mom in handcuffs, at Detective Martinez taking notes, at the federal agents offering me a chance to maybe save other kids like me. What exactly would I have to do? Agent Torres opened the folder and spread several documents across our kitchen table. Vincent Carrera will pick you up at Sky Harbor Airport Friday evening and drive you to what they call the Academy, a compound about 40 minutes outside Phoenix. You'll be there for 3 weeks, supposedly learning advanced financial management and investment strategies. But really learning money laundering, I said. Exactly. The first week is orientation. They'll teach you how different financial systems work, how to spot federal surveillance, how to communicate using coded language. Week 2 is hands-on training with small transactions. Week 3. Agent Torres paused. Week 3 is when they test your loyalty. Agent Kim pulled out his phone and showed me a photo of a sparse dormitory room. You'll be housed with other recruits, but our intelligence suggests you might be the only one there right now. Kevin Walsh graduated the program, Amanda refused it, Marcus disappeared during week 3 last spring. What happened to Marcus during week 3? The agents exchanged a look. The loyalty test involves committing a crime that would implicate you if you ever tried to leave the organization. For Marcus, they asked him to withdraw $10,000 from an account belonging to an elderly man in Phoenix and deliver it to a specific address. When he refused, he vanished. Mom leaned forward in her chair. You're asking my daughter to walk into a trap where kids disappear if they don't become criminals. We're asking her to help us shut down an operation that's already killed at least 2 teenagers and recruited dozens more, Agent Torres replied firmly. Sarah, the wire you'll wear is completely undetectable, it's woven into the fabric of a normal-looking sweater. We'll hear everything, record everything, and we'll have extraction protocols in place. I studied the documents spread in front of me. Flight confirmations, hotel reservations, a fake college preparatory program brochure that looked completely legitimate. How do you know they won't suspect something's wrong when Mrs. Kowalski doesn't answer her phone? That's the brilliant part of Dorothy's system, Agent Kim explained. She set up automated responses for everything. Vincent will receive pre-recorded voicemails from her through next Tuesday, all saying she's handling family business and can't talk directly. By the time anyone realizes she's not responding personally, you'll already be inside the compound. Detective Martinez, who'd been quiet during the FBI briefing, finally spoke up. What about Sarah's legal situation here? Her mother is still under arrest for theft and fraud. Agent Torres nodded. If Sarah agrees to cooperate, the local charges against Mrs. Chen will be suspended pending the federal investigation. We need Sarah focused on the mission, not worrying about her mother's incarceration. And if I refuse? Then Vincent Carrera gets suspicious when you don't show up Friday, the network disappears, and we're back to square one while more teenagers get recruited. Agent Torres closed the folder. Sarah, I won't lie to you, this is dangerous. But you have advantages the other recruits didn't have. You know it's a criminal operation going in. You'll have federal backup. And most importantly, you have a documented pattern of intelligence gathering and self-protection. Agent Kim added, Dorothy chose you because you're smart, careful, and desperate for college money. Those same qualities make you perfect for this undercover operation. I looked at Mom, whose face had gone pale. If something happens to me. Nothing will happen, Agent Torres said firmly. But Sarah, we need an answer now. Vincent is expecting confirmation of your flight by 6 p.m. tonight. The kitchen clock read 4:47 p.m. In 1 hour and 13 minutes, I'd have to decide whether to walk into a federal undercover operation that could either save other kids or get me killed. What happens if they realize I'm wearing a wire? Agent Torres met my eyes directly. Then we extract you immediately, and you'll be in witness protection until we can dismantle the network from the outside. The weight of the decision pressed down on me like a physical force. 17 years old, and somehow I'd become the key to stopping a criminal organization I'd never even known existed until this morning. I stared at the FBI folder, my mind racing through possibilities and consequences. There's something you need to know about Vincent Carrera, I said slowly. Mrs. Kowalski mentioned him before, but not as a banker. Agent Torres leaned forward. What do you mean? 3 weeks ago, she was telling me about her late husband's business partners. She said Vincent was like a son to her husband, that he'd been handling special arrangements for the family since 2009. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my notes app, where I'd been documenting strange conversations. She said Vincent had a temper problem and that kids who disappointed him learned quickly not to make the same mistake twice. Agent Kim cursed under his breath. That's not in any of our intelligence files. Because I never told anyone until now. I found the note from October 30th. She also said Vincent has a house in Phoenix and another property in Mexico, just across the border. She called it his backup plan and laughed like it was some kind of inside joke. Mom spoke up suddenly. Sarah, Dorothy mentioned Vincent to me too. She said if anything ever went wrong with the operation, Vincent would handle cleanup personally. Her voice dropped. I think cleanup means killing witnesses. Agent Torres was typing rapidly on her phone. We need to reassess the risk level. If Vincent Carrera is more than just a financial coordinator. There's more, I interrupted. Mrs. Kowalski showed me a photo album last month. Family pictures, she said. But one of the photos was Vincent with 2 teenagers at what looked like a graduation ceremony. She said they were success stories from the program, but when I asked where they were now, she got weird about it and changed the subject. Describe the teenagers, Agent Kim demanded. A girl with short blonde hair, maybe 16 or 17. And a boy with red hair and freckles, looked younger. Vincent had his arms around both of them, but their smiles looked. I searched for the right word. Forced. Like they were scared of him. Agent Torres showed me her tablet again, swiping to a missing persons database. Was this the girl? I stared at the school photo on the screen. Jennifer Walsh, age 16, missing from Spokane since August 2022. Same blonde hair, same uncertain smile. That's her. But wait, you said Kevin Walsh completed the program successfully. Is Jennifer related to Kevin? Kevin Walsh's younger sister, Agent Torres said grimly. She disappeared 2 weeks before Kevin started the program. He told everyone she'd run away, but now it looks like they took his sister to ensure his cooperation, Agent Kim finished. Classic leverage technique. The implications hit me like a sledgehammer. They don't just recruit honor students. They take hostages to control the ones they've already recruited. Detective Martinez looked up from his notepad. Sarah, do you have any siblings? Cousins? Anyone Vincent might target to control you? No siblings. My dad's in North Carolina, and Mom's family disowned us years ago. A terrible thought occurred to me. But they might not know that. If they think they need leverage. Agent Torres was already on her phone. We need surveillance on Robert Kowalski in Portland, and we need to check on Kevin Walsh's current status immediately. She covered the phone and looked at me. Sarah, this changes everything. If Vincent's suspects are not completely isolated, he might take preemptive action against people you care about. Ms. Rodriguez, I said suddenly. my school counselor. If they've been watching me, they know we've been meeting regularly. They might think she's like family to me. What's her full name and address? I rattled off the information while Agent Kim made rapid notes. The kitchen felt like mission control now, with federal agents coordinating protective details for people who had no idea their lives were in danger. Agent Torres ended her call and turned back to me. Kevin Walsh hasn't reported to his Seattle contact in 4 days. We think Vincent might already be cleaning house. Which means the Friday trip isn't recruitment, I realized. It's elimination. The clock on the kitchen wall read 5:23 p.m. In 37 minutes, Vincent Carrera would expect confirmation that I was boarding a flight to my own murder. Agent Torres ended another rapid phone call and looked at me with an expression that made my stomach drop. We just got word from Seattle. Kevin Walsh's body was found this morning in his apartment. Apparent overdose, but the timeline doesn't match. He's been dead at least 3 days. The room went silent except for the sound of my mother's sharp intake of breath. They're killing everyone, I whispered. Jennifer, Marcus, now Kevin. The program was never about recruitment. It was about finding kids they could use and then disposing of them when they became liabilities. Agent Kim pulled out his laptop and started typing furiously. If Vincent's cleaning house, he might not wait until Friday. Sarah, we need to get you into protective custody immediately. No. The word came out stronger than I expected. If I disappear now, he'll know something's wrong. Ms. Rodriguez will be in danger, and any other kids in the pipeline will just vanish. Agent Torres leaned forward. Sarah, you can't seriously be considering. I'm considering finishing what I started. I pulled out my phone and scrolled to Vincent's voicemail again. He called me 4 times today because he's desperate. Mrs. Kowalski's automated system is probably glitching, Kevin isn't responding, and I'm the only piece of his operation that seems to be working normally. Detective Martinez shook his head. You're 17. This isn't your responsibility. Maybe not, but I'm the only one who can get close to him. I looked around the kitchen at the adults who were supposed to protect me. And honestly, I've been managing dangerous situations with manipulative adults my entire life. At least this time I'd have backup. Mom spoke quietly from her chair. Sarah, if something happens to you because of choices I made, then you'll have to live with that. But if something happens to other kids because I was too scared to act, I'll have to live with that. I turned back to Agent Torres. What would the new plan look like? Absolutely not. The risk assessment has completely changed. Agent Kim closed his laptop. Actually, Sarah might be right about our window closing. We just intercepted a message from the Phoenix compound. They're accelerating the timeline. Vincent wants all current assets processed by Sunday. Processed meaning killed, I said flatly. Most likely. But it also means if we're going to move, it has to be now. Agent Kim looked at his partner. The original plan could still work, but we'd need to compress the timeline and increase our presence. Agent Torres was quiet for a long moment, clearly running calculations in her head. If we do this, you're not going to Phoenix. We bring Vincent here, to controlled territory. How? You call him back in exactly 12 minutes. You tell him there's been a family emergency and you can't travel until Sunday, but you're desperate to not lose this opportunity. You ask if there's any way he could come to you instead to at least get the paperwork started. I felt a spark of hope. You think he'd actually come? Vincent's operation is falling apart. Kevin's dead, his other recruits are missing, and his boss just died unexpectedly. If he thinks you're his last chance to salvage something. Agent Torres pulled out her phone. We could have him arrested on Oregon soil within 48 hours. Agent Kim added, we've been trying to get Vincent Carrera on U.S. soil for 18 months. He's usually careful to stay in Mexico or conduct business in Phoenix where he has local protection. But if he's desperate enough. Detective Martinez looked skeptical. What family emergency would be convincing enough to change travel plans but not urgent enough to cancel the meeting entirely? I thought for a moment, remembering years of my mother's coaching. Food poisoning from the school cafeteria. Half my class is sick, I'm miserable but not hospitalized. I'm terrified Mrs. Kowalski will be disappointed and find someone else if I don't at least try to salvage the opportunity. That's actually perfect, Agent Torres admitted. Urgent enough to explain the change, but not serious enough to postpone indefinitely. And it plays into what they already think they know about you, that you're desperate for this chance. Mom looked up from her handcuffs. Sarah learned to lie convincingly because I taught her to. If she says she can sell this story, believe her. The kitchen clock read 5:47 p.m. 13 minutes until I had to make the most important phone call of my life. Agent Kim was setting up recording equipment while Agent Torres briefed someone over her earpiece. Detective Martinez had moved to the window, watching for additional backup units. Sarah, Agent Torres said, if Vincent agrees to come here, we'll have approximately 36 hours to set up a controlled meeting. You'll wear the wire, but you'll be in a public place with agents positioned throughout the area. The moment we have him on tape discussing the criminal operation, we move in. I nodded, trying to project confidence I didn't entirely feel. Where would we meet? The downtown library. Public enough to seem innocent, contained enough for us to control variables. Agent Torres handed me a script with suggested talking points. Remember, you're desperate, grateful, and a little scared about disappointing Mrs. Kowalski. You don't know anything about the criminal aspects. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Sarah, this is Vincent. Please call me back as soon as possible. Dorothy is concerned about the arrangements. Time is becoming a factor. Agent Torres and I locked eyes. He's getting suspicious. We're doing this now. My hand shook as I dialed Vincent's number, the FBI recording equipment humming quietly beside me. Agent Torres held up 5 fingers, then 4, 3, 2, 1, signaling me to begin. Hello, Vincent? This is Sarah Chin. I'm so sorry I missed your calls. Sarah, dear. His voice was smooth, almost grandfatherly, but I caught an edge underneath that made my skin crawl. I was beginning to worry. Dorothy mentioned you might be having second thoughts about our program. I forced my voice to crack slightly. No, not second thoughts. I'm actually calling because I'm really sick. Food poisoning from lunch at school today, half my AP class is out with the same thing. I've been throwing up since 2 p.m. A pause. I see. And your flight tomorrow? That's what I'm panicking about. I can barely keep water down, and my mom says there's no way I can travel like this. But Mr. Carrera, I can't lose this opportunity. Mrs. Kowalski has been so kind, and this program could change my whole life. I let genuine desperation creep into my voice. It wasn't hard, considering the circumstances. Is there any way we could postpone just until Sunday? Or maybe, could you come here instead? Just to get the paperwork started so I don't lose my spot. Agent Torres gave me a thumbs up from across the kitchen table. Come to Oregon? Vincent's tone shifted, becoming more calculating. That's highly irregular, Sarah. This program operates on a very specific schedule. I know, and I'm so embarrassed to even ask. But I've been looking forward to this for weeks, and I've already told my guidance counselor about the college prep opportunity. If I miss this chance. I let my voice trail off into teenage devastation. Tell me about this guidance counselor. The question caught me off guard, but Agent Torres quickly scribbled a note. Keep it simple. Ms. Rodriguez. She's helped me with college applications and scholarship stuff. She's the one who said this kind of financial literacy program would look amazing on my applications. I paused, then added what I hoped sounded like naive honesty. I kind of exaggerated how prestigious it was. If I had to tell her I missed it because of food poisoning. Vincent chuckled, and the sound made my stomach churn. Young people and their pride. Very well, Sarah. Dorothy always said you were exceptionally motivated. Agent Kim was typing rapidly on his laptop, probably running traces on the call. Does that mean you'll consider coming here? I asked, letting hope bloom in my voice. I'll need to make some arrangements, but yes. Sunday afternoon, perhaps. Are you familiar with the downtown area of your city? Agent Torres held up a card. Pioneer Courthouse Square. Maybe Pioneer Courthouse Square? It's public and easy to find. And there's a coffee shop where we could talk privately. Perfect. Sunday at 2 p.m. I'll be wearing a navy blue suit and carrying a leather portfolio. You'll recognize me from Dorothy's photos. Vincent paused. Sarah, it's very important that you don't mention our meeting to anyone else. The program maintains strict confidentiality agreements. Of course. Should I bring anything? Just your social security card and driver's license. We'll handle everything else. His voice took on what was probably meant to be a reassuring tone. And Sarah? I'm very pleased Dorothy's instincts about you were correct. You show exactly the kind of problem-solving initiative we value. After ending the call, I set my phone down with trembling hands. Agent Torres immediately began coordinating with her team over her earpiece while Agent Kim pulled up surveillance maps of Pioneer Courthouse Square on his laptop. He's coming, I said unnecessarily. And he's bringing forged documents with your name on them, Agent Kim added grimly. That portfolio he mentioned? It's probably full of fraudulent bank paperwork ready for your signature. Detective Martinez looked up from his notes. Sunday gives us 36 hours to set up surveillance, brief the undercover team, and coordinate with local police. Agent Torres ended her call and turned back to me. Sarah, you just convinced a dangerous criminal to walk into our jurisdiction. But now comes the hard part. We need to make sure you're prepared for every possibility when you meet him face to face. Mom spoke up from her corner. Vincent mentioned Dorothy's photos. Sarah, did you actually see pictures of him at Mrs. Kowalski's house? I nodded. Several times. He's maybe 55, graying hair, average height. But Mom, there was something about his eyes in those photos. Even when he was smiling, he looked. I searched for the word. Predatory, Agent Torres supplied. Which is exactly what he is. Sarah, Sunday isn't just about gathering evidence. Vincent Carrera has killed at least 3 teenagers that we know of. The moment he realizes you're not who he thinks you are, this becomes a life or death situation. The weight of what I'd just committed to settled over me like a heavy blanket. In 48 hours, I'd be sitting across from a killer, wearing a wire, pretending to be an eager victim while federal agents tried to gather enough evidence to put him away forever. Agent Kim's laptop chimed with an incoming message. He read it, then looked up with an expression that made my blood run cold. We just intercepted another communication. Vincent's bringing backup to Portland. 2 associates, arriving Saturday night. Which means, Agent Torres said grimly, he's either planning to take you back to Phoenix by force, or he never intended for you to leave that coffee shop alive. The silence that followed Agent Kim's announcement felt like a physical weight pressing down on the kitchen. 2 associates. Vincent wasn't coming to Portland for a simple recruitment meeting. He was coming to eliminate the last witness to Dorothy Kowalski's operation. We need to abort, Agent Torres said immediately, reaching for her phone. The risk is too high with 3 hostiles. No. I surprised myself with how firm my voice sounded. If we abort now, they'll disappear forever. How many more kids will get pulled into this? Agent Kim pulled up a database on his laptop. Sarah's right about the timeline. We've been tracking Vincent's network for 3 years, and this is our first chance to get him on U.S. soil with evidence. If he runs now, he could be recruiting teenagers for another decade, Detective Martinez finished. What would a 3-person takedown look like? Agent Torres was quiet for a moment, clearly running tactical scenarios in her head. We'd need at least 12 agents positioned around Pioneer Courthouse Square. Snipers on the surrounding buildings. Undercover operatives at every table in that coffee shop. She looked at me directly. And you'd need to be wearing more than just a wire. We're talking full surveillance package, video, audio, GPS tracker, and a panic button. What kind of panic button? Agent Kim opened a small metal case and pulled out what looked like an ordinary ballpoint pen. Press the clip twice rapidly, and every federal agent within a 6-block radius gets an emergency signal. Response time under 90 seconds. I turned the pen over in my hands. Such a small thing to represent the difference between life and death. There's something else, Mom said quietly from her chair. Dorothy mentioned that Vincent has a tell when he's about to hurt someone. She said he touches his left wrist. There's a scar there from some kind of accident years ago. If you see him do that. Agent Torres leaned forward. What kind of accident? She didn't give details, but she said Vincent got overenthusiastic during a business negotiation in Tijuana back in 2019. The other person fought back with a broken bottle. Mom's voice dropped. Dorothy thought it was hilarious that Vincent carried a permanent reminder of underestimating his opposition. Agent Kim was typing notes rapidly. A scar could help us confirm identity. Sarah, during your meeting, you'll need to get a clear view of his left wrist for our surveillance cameras. How am I supposed to do that naturally? Agent Torres smiled grimly. By acting like a nervous teenager who fidgets with her hands a lot. When he reaches for his coffee, for documents, anything, you'll have opportunities. Detective Martinez's radio crackled, and he stepped into the hallway to take the call. When he returned, his expression was troubled. We have another problem. Mrs. Kowalski's house was broken into an hour ago. Professional job, they knew exactly where her important documents were stored. Vincent's people, Agent Kim said immediately. They're destroying evidence. Or retrieving it, I realized with a chill. What if they found more documents with my name on them? Bank signature cards, fake identification, other kids who were supposed to be recruited? Agent Torres was already on her phone again, coordinating with the crime scene team. While she talked, Agent Kim showed me photos from the Portland FBI office, dozens of surveillance points around Pioneer Courthouse Square, escape routes, emergency protocols. Sarah, he said quietly, I need you to understand something. Sunday isn't just about gathering evidence against Vincent. If his operation is as large as we suspect, the information you help us collect could save dozens of kids across multiple states. I stared at the surveillance photos, imagining myself walking into that square knowing 3 killers were waiting for me. What happens if the wire malfunctions? If the panic button doesn't work? If your 90-second response time isn't fast enough? Agent Kim met my eyes directly. Then you use everything your mother taught you about reading people and manipulating situations to stay alive until we can reach you. Mom looked up sharply. Don't put that on her. Sarah shouldn't have to rely on survival skills I taught her for stealing from restaurants. Right now, those skills might be the only thing keeping her alive, Agent Torres said, ending her call. The break-in at Dorothy's house was thorough. They took computers, files, even old photo albums. Vincent is either covering his tracks or gathering intelligence for Sunday's meeting. Which means he might know more about me than we thought, I said, feeling cold despite the kitchen's warmth. What if he's seen my school records? My social media? What if he knows I've been meeting with Ms. Rodriguez and gets suspicious about why a successful student needs counseling? Agent Kim's phone buzzed with a text message. He read it and cursed under his breath. Vincent just confirmed his travel arrangements. He's arriving Saturday at 11:47 p.m. on a private flight into Hillsborough Airport. No commercial records, no passenger manifests. Hillsborough's only 30 minutes from downtown, Detective Martinez noted. He could be at Pioneer Square by noon Sunday, scope out the location, position his associates. Agent Torres stood up abruptly. We're moving Sarah into protective custody tonight. Safe house, full security detail, complete communication blackout until Sunday morning. Will that work? I asked. Vincent seems to know a lot about Dorothy's recruits. What if he has ways of monitoring me between now and Sunday? That's exactly why we're going dark. No phone, no internet, no contact with anyone who might be compromised. Agent Torres gathered her files. Sarah, go pack a bag with clothes for 3 days. Nothing electronic, nothing that could be traced or tracked. As I headed toward the stairs, Mom called out softly. Sarah? I turned back to look at her, still handcuffed to our kitchen chair, and felt a complicated mix of emotions I couldn't quite name. Your father would be proud of how brave you're being, she said. I know I never let you believe that, but he would be. For some reason, those words hit harder than anything else that had happened in this impossible day. In 40 hours, I'd be face to face with Vincent Carrera, pretending to be an eager victim while wearing enough surveillance equipment to outfit a small army. The next 3 days would either end a criminal network that had been destroying teenagers' lives for years, or they'd end mine. I went upstairs to pack. The safe house turned out to be a bland suburban rental in Beaverton with beige walls, generic furniture, and bars on all the windows. Agent Torres handed me a flip phone that looked like it belonged in 2005. Emergency contact only, she said, settling into the chair across from my temporary bedroom. We've got agents monitoring the perimeter, but Vincent's people are sophisticated. No risks. I sat on the edge of the narrow bed, still processing everything that had happened in the past 8 hours. This morning I'd been worried about my AP chemistry test. Now I was in federal protective custody, preparing to take down a criminal network that had killed at least 3 teenagers. Agent Torres, I said quietly, what happens to my mom? The local charges are suspended pending our investigation, like I said. But Sarah. She paused, choosing her words carefully. When this is over, your mother will likely face federal charges for conspiracy and financial exploitation of the elderly. The evidence against her is substantial. I nodded, surprised by how little that upset me. 6 months ago, the thought of Mom going to prison would have sent me into a panic spiral. Now it felt almost inevitable, the logical conclusion to years of increasingly desperate schemes. Ms. Rodriguez will be contacted tomorrow morning, Agent Torres continued. We'll tell her you're dealing with a family emergency and will be out of school through Tuesday. She's been briefed on the basics of your situation. She knows about the undercover operation? She knows you're cooperating with federal law enforcement and that your safety is our top priority. Agent Torres pulled out a tablet. Now, we need to rehearse every aspect of Sunday's meeting. Vincent will be looking for any sign that you're not who you claim to be. For the next 3 hours, we went over my cover story again and again. Sarah Chen, desperate honor student, grateful for Mrs. Kowalski's mentorship, naive about the true nature of the Phoenix program. Agent Torres played Vincent, throwing curveball questions designed to trip me up. Why should we trust someone whose own mother doesn't believe in her potential, she asked, mimicking Vincent's smooth tone. Because Mrs. Kowalski saw something in me that my family never did, I replied, letting real emotion bleed into my voice. She said I had the intelligence and integrity for advanced financial work. This program is my chance to prove her right. Very good. But you hesitated before answering, Vincent will catch that. We practiced for another hour until I could answer his potential questions without missing a beat. The key was staying as close to the truth as possible while omitting anything that suggested I knew about the criminal aspects. At 11:30 p.m., Agent Kim knocked on the bedroom door. We just intercepted Vincent's communication with his Phoenix contacts. He's definitely bringing the forged documents we expected, but there's something else. He handed Agent Torres a printout. He requested a disposal team standing by Sunday evening. My stomach dropped. Disposal team? Professional cleaners, Agent Torres said grimly. Vincent never intended for you to walk away from Sunday's meeting. The plan was always elimination. He's just doing it in Portland instead of Phoenix. Agent Kim sat down on the room's only other chair. There's more. We've identified his two associates, Miguel Santos and Peter Kozlov. Both have extensive criminal records, both suspected in multiple disappearances across the Southwest. 3 professional killers, I said, my voice coming out smaller than intended. And I'm supposed to sit in a coffee shop and make small talk while wearing a wire. You're supposed to get Vincent talking about the Phoenix operation long enough for us to gather prosecutable evidence, Agent Torres corrected. The moment we have what we need, the takedown happens. You won't be in that coffee shop longer than 20 minutes. What if he realizes something's wrong in the first 5 minutes? Agent Kim leaned forward. Then you use the panic button, and we extract you immediately. Sarah, 12 federal agents will be within 100 feet of your table. We're not letting anything happen to you. I wanted to believe him, but the statistics kept running through my head. Jennifer Walsh, dead. Marcus Thompson, missing. Kevin Walsh, murdered in his own apartment. And now Vincent was bringing a disposal team to Portland. Agent Torres, what happens if this goes wrong? If Vincent escapes, or his network finds out I cooperated? Witness protection, she said without hesitation. New identity, new city, college fully funded by the federal government. It's not ideal, but you'd be completely safe. I thought about that possibility, disappearing entirely, starting over somewhere else with a new name and fabricated history. In some ways, it sounded like freedom. No more managing mom's moods, no more walking on eggshells, no more being responsible for someone else's criminal behavior. There's something I need to tell you about Mrs. Kowalski, I said suddenly. Something that might matter for Sunday. Both agents looked up sharply. She had a safe in her basement laundry room. Behind the water heater, built into the wall. She showed it to me 2 weeks ago when I was helping with her winter clothes. I took a breath. She said it contained insurance in case her business partners ever tried to cheat her. Agent Torres was already reaching for her phone. What kind of insurance? Photos, documents, recordings. She said she'd been collecting evidence against Vincent for years, just in case she ever needed to remind him who really runs this operation. Agent Kim stood up abruptly. If Dorothy had dirt on Vincent, and her house was broken into tonight, they might not have found everything, I finished. The safe is completely hidden. You'd never know it was there unless someone showed you. Agent Torres was speaking rapidly into her phone, coordinating another search of Dorothy's house. When she hung up, she looked at me with something approaching hope. Sarah, if Dorothy's insurance files are still intact, Sunday's meeting just became a lot less dangerous. Instead of trying to get Vincent to confess, we might already have everything we need to arrest him. But he doesn't know that, I realized. Which means he's still planning to kill me. Which means, Agent Kim said with a cold smile, Vincent Carrera is about to walk into the biggest federal trap in Oregon history. Sunday morning arrived gray and drizzly, typical Portland weather that somehow felt appropriate for what was about to happen. Agent Torres woke me at 6 a.m. with coffee and the news that Dorothy's hidden safe had yielded a treasure trove of evidence. Photographs of Vincent with known cartel members, financial records spanning 8 years, and audio recordings of him discussing the murders of Jennifer Walsh and Marcus Thompson, she said, spreading documents across the safe house kitchen table. We have enough to put him away for life without anything you gather today. I should have felt relieved, but somehow the pressure felt even heavier. So why are we still doing this? Because Vincent's bringing 2 associates who are wanted for crimes in 4 states. And because his Phoenix compound still has other teenagers trapped in the program. Agent Torres handed me a small earpiece, nearly invisible once inserted. Today isn't just about Vincent anymore, it's about dismantling his entire network. At 1:15 p.m., I walked into Pioneer Courthouse Square wearing jeans, a gray sweater with the FBI wire woven into its fabric, and enough surveillance equipment to stock a spy movie. The panic button pen was clipped to my jacket pocket, a GPS tracker was sewn into my shoe sole, and the tiny camera in my glasses would record everything. Vincent was already there, exactly as promised, navy suit, leather portfolio, sitting at a corner table in the square's coffee shop. He looked older than in Dorothy's photos, with deep lines around his eyes and gray threading through his dark hair. When he smiled and waved me over, he looked like someone's grandfather. Sarah. You look much better than you sounded on Friday, he said warmly, standing to pull out my chair. I trust the food poisoning has passed? Much better, thank you. I sat down carefully, hyper-aware of the wire against my skin and the federal agent's position throughout the square. I'm just so grateful you were willing to come all this way. Dorothy spoke very highly of you. She said you reminded her of herself at your age, intelligent, ambitious, and willing to do whatever it takes to succeed. Vincent opened his portfolio and pulled out a thick folder. Now, shall we discuss your future? For the next 15 minutes, Vincent painted a picture of financial opportunity that would have sounded amazing to any desperate teenager. Advanced banking courses, internship programs with international firms, guaranteed college scholarships, and starting salaries that most adults would envy. The beauty of our program, he said, sliding a document across the table, is that it's completely legal. We're simply teaching advanced financial strategies that most people never learn. I picked up the paper, a bank signature card with my name already typed at the top. This looks official. Very official. You'd be managing investment accounts for high net worth clients who prefer privacy in their financial affairs. Vincent's voice remained warm and grandfatherly, but I caught something else underneath. Of course, discretion is paramount. Our clients value confidentiality above all else. What kind of amounts would I be handling? Initially? Perhaps $50,000 to $100,000 per transaction. But Sarah, our most successful graduates manage millions. Vincent leaned forward slightly. Jennifer Walsh was processing $2 million monthly before her graduation. My blood ran cold. He just mentioned Jennifer by name, the girl whose body had been found in Spokane. She graduated? That's wonderful. Where is she working now? Vincent's smile didn't waver, but his left hand moved to touch his wrist, the tell Mom had warned me about. Jennifer moved on to advanced placement. Very advanced. Through my earpiece, I heard Agent Torres's voice. We have what we need. Initiating takedown in 60 seconds. I forced myself to keep smiling while my heart hammered against my ribs. Advanced placement sounds exciting. Will I get to meet Jennifer during my training? Oh, I think you'll be seeing Jennifer very soon, Vincent said, his tone shifting almost imperceptibly. In fact, Sarah, there's something I should mention about today's meeting. His hand moved from his wrist to his jacket pocket. I pressed the panic button twice rapidly. What should you mention? I asked, buying time while federal agents closed in from every direction. Vincent's grandfatherly mask finally slipped completely. Dorothy Kowalski died under very suspicious circumstances. Her house was searched by federal agents. And you, my dear, are not nearly as naive as you've been pretending. The coffee shop erupted into chaos as 12 FBI agents simultaneously shouted federal agents. Nobody move. Vincent's hand froze halfway to his pocket as laser sights painted red dots across his chest. Vincent Carrera, you're under arrest for murder, conspiracy, money laundering, and trafficking in persons, Agent Torres announced, her weapon trained on his center mass. As they cuffed him, Vincent looked directly at me with cold hatred. You have no idea what you've just destroyed, little girl. Actually, I said, standing up on shaking legs, I know exactly what I've destroyed. A network that murdered kids like me for profit. And Vincent? I met his eyes steadily. I'm not a little girl. I'm the teenager who just put you in federal prison for the rest of your life. 3 months later, I sat in the courthouse lobby waiting for Vincent Carrera's sentencing hearing. The federal prosecutor had told me he was facing 4 consecutive life sentences without parole. Miguel Santos and Peter Kozlov had been arrested at their hotel that same Sunday evening and were cooperating in exchange for reduced sentences. Mom was serving 18 months in minimum security for her role in Mrs. Kowalski's operation, but she'd also been cooperating with federal prosecutors. We talked once a week now, stilted conversations that were slowly becoming something resembling honest communication. The Emancipation Papers had been finalized in January. At 18, I was officially an independent adult with my own apartment, a part-time job at the FBI's Portland field office helping with cybercrime cases, and a full scholarship to Portland State University starting in the fall. Agent Torres found me in the lobby and sat down beside me. You don't have to be here for this, you know. I want to be here, I said firmly. I want to watch him get sentenced for what he did to Jennifer and Marcus and Kevin. Any word from your father? I nodded, pulling out my phone to show her a text from North Carolina. Dad had reached out after seeing news coverage of the case, and we'd been video chatting every Sunday. Turns out Mom's version of why he'd left had been about as accurate as everything else she'd told me. He's flying out for my high school graduation next month, I said. First time I'll see him in 6 years. Agent Torres smiled. I'm proud of you, Sarah. What you did took extraordinary courage. I thought about that as Vincent Carrera was led into the courtroom in shackles. Courage felt like too generous a word for what had mostly been sheer terror and determination to survive. But maybe courage was exactly that, being terrified and acting anyway because people's lives depended on it. Agent Torres, I said as we stood to go into the courtroom, thank you for believing a 17-year-old could handle something this big. Thank you for proving that sometimes the best person to catch a predator is someone who spent their whole life learning to outsmart one. Vincent Carrera received 4 consecutive life sentences that afternoon. His Phoenix compound was shut down, and 3 other teenagers were rescued from what prosecutors called financial trafficking operations across Arizona and New Mexico. My mother's attempt to frame me for theft had indeed given me my freedom, just not in any way she could have imagined when she planted that emerald bracelet in my dresser drawer. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you turns out to be the exact thing that saves your life.